This is an honor and a great pleasure to work for this panel, and I'll start introducing from my right-hand side. Brigadier General, retired, Velma Richardson, also President of VLR Consulting. And on my left-hand side, I start with Dr. Marvin Carroll. This man never sleeps. If you want to know where the money is, let me see. Oh. Learn from this tree. If they're sitting on this table, there's probably money under the table. I know Dr. Carroll from Techmaster in Huntsville, Alabama. That's where the accent comes from. And it's also a pleasure to introduce my good colleague and friend, Dr. Brian Kent. Dr. Carroll is CEO and President of Techmaster. If I forgot, I'm very sorry. Dr. Brian Kent is President and CEO of K3 Enterprise. You may want to talk to him. He's the man who runs around and tries to make sure everybody gets paid. And help our school too. Also, my good friend, Mr. Randy Moore. And if I see in a meeting which Randy is there, I know there is money. He's not there for fun. Mr. Moore is the President and CEO of RLM Communications. So, all that said, I want to request the panelists kindly address what is on the first page of this note, which says, first, introduce yourself and tell your background and your interest. That's from my side. Talk to people here about requirement of cybersecurity in order to get federal contracts. What are the entrepreneurship opportunities? Where might be the seed funding for early stage startup? If you can guide our audience here. Remember that we have 10 small business and we have quite a few who are startup and they're looking for your guidance. And don't take more than, please, don't take more than, is it 1, 2, 3, 4? No more than 10 minutes, so we will have more time for Q&A. Is that good? 10 minutes, thank you. I'll sit in the corner. Start from the right hand side. Madam President.
Well, thank you and good morning. I think it's still morning. Glad to see you all here, and I'm certainly very pleased to be here. As Dr. Ayla said, I'm retired from active duty, retired in 2003. I was an Army signal officer down at Fort Gordon. My last job was as the Deputy Commander of the Network Enterprise Command out at Fort Huachuca. I then took on 10 years with Lockheed Martin, where I did some government relations in DoD information technology systems and services. And then the latter part of my time with Lockheed Martin was spent with one of our small business offices. I retired from there in 2013, took a little bit of a hiatus. I claim to be VLR Consulting President, but the truth is I've been doing advisory consulting. I haven't been paid yet in any way. But as a result of some of that consulting, I did recently become the CEO of a health and beauty care company called Exhale. We're going to be have our products in the Army and Air Force Exchange Service in August, and from there we plan to expand out into Walmart, Target, CVS, Walgreens. That's where those kinds of products are typically sold, and so we're going to look at all of those channels. Some of the things I would like to talk to you is from my small business experience within a large corporation, and having seen many and talked to many small businesses who have come in wanting to get on a contract or be a partner with a large business. And so I probably have seen no fewer than probably 250 companies over the 10 years that I was with Lockheed Martin. Oftentimes it would be, so I know Lockheed Martin has lots of contracts. What can I do for you? This is the small business. Well, I mean, there's probably a lot of things you might be able to do for a large business, but what is it that you, the small business, can do? My advice usually to, and the questions that I ask to small businesses are, what do you do? And so you really have to be able to be succinct about that. Many small businesses will tell me, I can do anything. Yep, that's probably right, but anything isn't what we're looking for. We're looking for something very, very specific. Is there a particular customer that you think you have a service or a product that needs what you really are good at and what you can do? And if that's so, is that customer of interest to the large business that you're now talking about? So I was trying to, let me think, because there's almost nothing that Lockheed Martin doesn't do. They're involved in almost everything. But you wouldn't want to be trying to sell them a shower gel when Lockheed Martin is not in the retail business, okay? Know what the large company that and you got a couple of them sitting up here. They are either medium or large size at this point. They started out as small businesses, and they do some very specific things. So do your study regarding that company and what they do and where their contracts are and how you can help them, because that's what matters. You may have some certifications in the small business area, in the veteran-owned area, all of those sorts of things. But that's really not your lead necessarily. It helps. Your lead is what you can do. What is the service that you are actually going to provide? That's where you lead. Here's how I can help you. Now, I also happen to be SBA certified. I'm woman-owned, I'm minority-owned, I'm veteran-owned, whatever the certifications you might have. And they may have a very specific requirement for that and latch on to you. But that's not where you lead. You lead with what you can do. You also need to make sure that you're financially sound. Companies like a Lockheed Martin will go and check the Brad and Dunn Street information on your company, and if there's some question about your financial stability, they'll be a little leery of doing business with you, and that also includes the government, for that matter. Especially if you're a startup, I get you should be planning to be a company of one, or if it's a two-person company, a company of two for some time, and be the person who's actually conducting or doing the work for a large company or for the government. Let's see here. What is your professional network? And this goes back to what can you do for a large business in particular. If your professional network takes you to a decision maker or a set of decision makers within a particular agency, so I've had small businesses say, I work I know people in the Army. Who do you know in the Army? You know, where is it in the Army? The Army is a big organization, we all know that. So where in the Army are you kind of settled or connected? And is that a spot that is a bit dry for the large business and they are trying to work their way into that area? You then, that's your value add. You can bring that particular agency or that part of the agency to that organization. And so you should work that as a network, professional network piece. I wrote down mentor-protege. Most mentor-protege agreements have to be done on a contract so that the large business or the mentor is able to get paid. So it's something that you work all of the angles so that you can get to that point. And make sure that you are branding yourself or well branded. You don't want a large business to call somebody that you say is a reference and they say, oh my goodness, I'd never hire them again. They did this or they didn't do that, and that's what. Make sure you're well branded. Let's see here. Basically, do some intelligence gathering across an agency that you think you would want to work in, and know when the contracts are going to be coming out, kind of what they're about. Go in and visit with the people who are going to use either the service or the product, as well as the small business office and others who are in the decision, who could be in the decision-making line. And many folks, there are no shortage of opportunities out there. In regard to cyber, that Dr. Isla asked me to, I'd say the minute you are working with another business or with the government and you are, your company's systems are connected, you become part of that network, obviously, and you have to be as cyber secure as that company is. And so that's usually not something that a small business thinks of early on, but it's always the weakest link. And if it's the small business that becomes the weakest link, then that becomes an issue for the large business or for a government agency. And I'm going to stop there, pass it on to Dr. Marvin Carroll, who's going to tell you, who's going to give you some work, give you a job, and show you where the money is.
Thank you very much for that brief, yet subject to discussion introduction. My background is electrical engineering, designing missile systems. I retired from the federal government in 1988, so you can do some math there. And so been in business for quite some time. And for those that are thinking about business, it can be wonderful. However, there's nothing wonderful about being in business. Okay? Some people call us pseudo-masochists, if you will. Simply because when you decide that you're going into business, you started off with a bucket that was full of water. And when you said you're going into business, you punched a hole in the bottom of that bucket. And the water started flowing out. And if it ever runs out of water, you're out of business. So what it means is that somehow you've got to cause water to go in the bucket such that the bucket never runs out. Okay? And that can be difficult. Now, it can be fun But you got to understand how business is conducted within the government. The first thing you find is that when you win a contract, it's approximately 60 days, 30 to 60 days before you get paid for the work that you performed. Now, why is that a problem? Well, if you're wealthy, it is no problem. But you've got people on the payroll that you must pay for them to remain with you. And if you're a small business, and some large businesses, you don't have that money. So either you get some kind of financing, but as soon as you say financing, you're talking about paying interest. Okay? And you hear people talk about business and they talk about cash flow. The problem is not cash flow, it's a lack of cash flow. Because if the cash is flowing, you're in good shape. Okay? But it's a lack of cash flow. We get so philosophical talking about business that in many cases we fail to realize these things that are basic. I could talk to you about cybersecurity, but you've heard about that. And we know that there's a compelling need for people in cybersecurity. Now, I stated compelling need. It means there's a requirement. Everything's about requirements. It's about requirements. You talk about finding business. Yet we go in and talk to a potential customer about our capabilities. And we spend, well, let me just say for the conversation, the individual that you're visiting allocate 30 minutes. And you come in with a stack of view graphs that's a half-inch thick, if you will. And for the first 25 of the 30 minutes, you're telling the potential customer how wonderful you are. And really you're going there to try to find out about requirements. How can you find out about requirements when you're doing all the talking? Interesting, yet not intended to be profound, but we all make that mistake. You go to find out about business, to find out, are there requirements? Why is that important? Because if they don't have requirements, they don't have money. And at the end of the day, as much as you love what we're talking about, cybersecurity, the total process, at the end of the day, you want to make some money. That's the reason for being in business. It's not a love-in. Okay? All the philosophical things that we talk about, at the end of the day, we're interested in cybersecurity because there's a compelling need, because we security. And why do we want to go in that direction? Because we feel at the end of the rainbow, there's going to be a pot of gold. Okay? I like to deal with things as best I can from the standpoint of realism. Doing business with the government is a unique experience. And that's not intended to be negative, but you have to understand how to do business with the government. There are all kinds of regulations, there are processes, there are procedures. If you have never served on an SSEB, and that Source Selection Evaluation Board, or if you've never been an SSA, a Source Selection Authority, if those kind of alphabet soup does not resonate with you, you need to find out about it. Because if you're going to be successful in business and winning business, you've got to understand the language that pertains to the government. Okay? You got to understand that the contracting officer and the importance of a warrant. Why is that important? You got to know who can obligate the government. You're going to have a counterpart in your business that serves as the point for obligating the company. I'm the president, I'm the servant, really, of the company, if you will. I cannot obligate the company. You can't, no, I cannot. Because I do not have a warrant. So, as a part of business, as a part of, be it cybersecurity or whatever the subject happens to be, you've got to understand the rules of engagement. Spend that upfront time and know what you're getting yourself into. That is not intended to be a negative. It's intended to be a positive, if you will, because sooner or later, the events associated with business will stare you in the face. You will have a cash flow problem if you stay in business. That's not a threat, that's a promise. Okay? And when you talk about requirements, you're going to have difficulty, virtually impossible, if you don't spend time understanding the customer's requirements. It's about requirements. Don't get so directed in a certain direction that when there's a compelling need in a specific area, you ignore it. Because the difference between doing it and not doing it is finding the proper people. So you can make it difficult if you wish, or you can focus on we can do it, a can-do attitude. I could go on with this, but I think I'll just kind of bow out now because I'm kind of getting pumped up with this. Okay, but again, business can be fun. I wouldn't continue in this mode unless it's an opportunity to share some of the lessons learned, and it's still fun.
Okay, well, first, thank you all for coming today, and I'm glad I've had get the opportunity actually to talk with you. And hopefully, what I can put out in the next 5 or 10 minutes will help someone. I retired from the military in 2005. I spent 10 years as a non-commissioned officer and then 10 years as an officer. My last assignment, I was the program manager and acquisition officer for communications and information technology. 2005, when I retired from out of Fort Bragg, I started K3 Enterprises primarily as a consulting company. The office I was in, I was the only person in the office that wore the title as an acquisition officer, so everybody that knew me had received money from me. And under the ethics codes for DoD, I had kind of a cooling off period before I could go to work back and facing with the government. Started K3 in 2005. Some of you probably have looked at the website. Our primary focus, as you can tell, is in the 4 T's, which we call our technology. And it's really more of a support role. We do not build any software, write code, or bend any hardware. Our focus areas are introduction of new technology, integration of new technology, training for technology, and then of course sustainment or support roles. As part of that role, one of the jobs I currently have, I'm actually a transition manager of emerging technologies out of DARPA, which is Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency in Washington, D.C. I know all the mile markers we here in Washington, as you can imagine. Know which ones have Dunkin' Donuts, which ones have Starbucks, depending on the mood I'm in. In support of the community, though, I'm very actively involved. At Fayetteville State, I'm an advisor to Dr. Charles for the Center of Defense and Homeland Security. I'm also on the board for Business and Economics at Fayetteville State. And then I teach entrepreneurship over at Fayetteville Tech. And then, of course, I'm trying to build a workforce or help design a program for our workforce for cyber, intelligence, and IT for this area so we can bring more industry to this area to keep some of the folks leaving Fort Bragg and graduating out of our high schools to stay in this area. Then, of course, the next, Pete, I'm also the vice president on the Angel Fund, which is local here. I'm going to talk a little bit about that in just a second. I like to start with the base. First of all, our guys in the back table, they can definitely help you get your documentation done. If you haven't heard of SAM and you think you're going to get in this business, SAM, you better learn about it. It's, I forget what, it's acquisition management. I forget what the S stands for, but that's how you register to do business with the U.S. government. And if you're not registered in SAM, you cannot bid or be a subcontractor for federal contracts. The second thing, when my colleague brought up D&B, I do stress for you to look at DMB. K3 doesn't recognize DMB as an authorized agency, and we're actually in a class action lawsuit against them because they allow people to post to your credit and not present who they are. So there's more to follow on that. DMB's probably going to get some house cleaning, much like the credit agencies did about 15 years ago. Just business credit agencies are a little behind. As you walk in, as you said, to a small, medium, or large business, you need to make sure you understand your credentials, the capabilities you're going to bring. If you think you're going to bid on a top secret cyber contract and you don't really know how to spell top secret clearance, you've never looked up or filled out an SF-86, you're probably not going to bid that contract. So make sure you understand the credentials. Some of the DoD contracts are very specific these days, especially as it comes to CMMI, level 2, 3, 4, and 5, ISO 20K or 20,000, which is contributes a lot to the IT environment, and then also to ISO 9001, 2008, which is about to shift to 2015. So focus on your credentials as you're starting your business or as you're starting to look to bid for business, so you know exactly how to address. And as Kenyatta said last night, make sure in the technical volume you're saying, hey, I'm bringing an ISO 9000 compliant system to solve this problem, and really lay your technology capability out in the technical volume. I'm going to jump forward down to the requirements on the sheet here. We talk about BAAs, SIBRs, and experimental testing. One of the gentlemen asked earlier about experimental testing and new product. The Small Business Innovative Research Fund, or SBIR.gov, is broken down in all the agencies that actually do SBIRs. Definitely, if you have a new product or idea, you want to start looking there. Under broad area announcements, the Technical Support Working Group and other agencies actually collect requirements through broad area announcements. They are not restricted to the dollar figures that SBIRs are. An SBIR obviously starts at $150,000. A BAA doesn't have to start at that small a number. If that's a large number to you, you might want to evaluate this business, because that's usually the starting gate. It's by the time you add an employee or two. Contract requirements. We are recently a prime awardee on a contract called INSCOM GI. Some of you probably read about that in the paper. It's a global intelligence contract, which includes cyber. As you're looking at some of these large, we call them omnibus contracts, where the government by agencies will roll up a lot of their requirements into a large contract and then have multiple winners. That means you're going to bid for the chance to bid for the work. So it's not just the 90 days my gentleman to my right here was talking about. On INSCOM GI, I actually submitted that contract in July of 2013, and I hope to go to work on it sometime this summer. So dealing with the government, you got to really think about the bucket analogy that was used. Seed funding. There are grants, if you're interested in grants with SBIRs or STTRs, to join with Fayetteville State, Fayetteville Tech, or Methodist to pursue those. There's a great opportunity to do that. There's a great wealth of knowledge at of all three universities. I'm sure there's universities outside Cumberland County too, but I mean, those are the three that I work with on a routine basis. I definitely would encourage you to talk with them if you're trying to look at some of the grant or some of the immediate rewards, because grants tend to be bid and they're awarded usually within 90 to 180 days, unlike most of the federal contracts are these days. Seed funding. There was a fund Fayetteville Tech was running a quarterly meeting on called Innovation Fund of North Carolina, which was North Carolina's funding for upstarts. I think there were $25,000 grants to help with a new idea or new product. There are also the IMAF, or the Innovative Micro Angel Fund, is also here in Fayetteville. If you're interested in looking at that, it's called IMAF Sandhills. The governor a couple of years ago started IMAF, and there are 6 of those angel funds across North Carolina. One is actually here in Fayetteville. Normally, and it is Shark Tank. You come in and we'll tell you usually within 12 hours if we're going to even do the due diligence on your company. So We'll look at the company, normal investments somewhere between 35 and 50,000. If we think it's a really novel idea, we can actually pool all 6 and get up to $300,000 to $500,000. So there is, and that's the angel fund. At the next stage will be venture capital. Of course, I don't want to go too deep into that, or we'll be into a whole entrepreneurial class on how to run a business and raise funds. But there are funds in North Carolina, and there are funds here locally to help you with your business. Winning contracts, I like to use the analogy I learned while I was in the military. Took about 24 to 48 hours to write an operations order or an op plan, and we called it 10% plan and 90% execution, because once the first bullet starts flying, the plan's out the window and you're executing. So business is very much the same way. You write a strategic plan, and as you start moving out down that strategic plan, you know what the intent is, but you have to adjust to the business environments as it moves each day. That has to do with the banking environment, the insurance environment. I had to step out earlier this morning. I want to put a 12-foot of curbing at my building so that I can increase the size of my parking lot. It's going to take about 90 days, about $3,000, and 3 or 4 more agencies and lawyers to get involved. That's the local bureaucracy. Just imagine when you start dealing with local, state, and federal. And the last thing is small business. Be very aware of what we call the NACE codes, or the classification codes for your small business. As you're designing your business and picking your NACE code for SAM, pick the one that suits you the best. The government will try to award or try to list proposals based on NACE codes or classification codes. Those are key, because if you're an IT company, you don't need to be in the laundry and bath NACE code. And you'll be surprised, I see companies in the wrong NACE codes, and the government can make mistakes. I've seen IT contracts come out in the laundry and bath NACE code, which is what I use as an example. So you just have to, watch the titles of the contracts and the NACE codes. Reason NACE codes are important: as soon as you walk into Lockheed, they're going to ask you what NACE code are you in and what size business are you, and what is your socioeconomic category. Are you a veteran-owned company? Are you a minority-owned company? A woman-owned company? A small business? Disabled veteran? I know both Randy and I both are listed with the Veterans Enterprise as disabled veterans. So we're both SDVOSB. And Randy, I'll talk more about. He has a few more classifications. And of course, he's a larger company than I am too, so he gets a few more. But the key on that is making sure you understand how to represent yourself to your mid-sized, large primes and to the government. And again, there's some already government-paid staff at the universities that can help you with that, or in the local business. And definitely would encourage you to do your homework. This industry is not for the thin-skinned. If you want to wait 2 years for a paycheck, you'll understand why. And if having a credit line out there about $1 million scares you, you don't think you can sleep at night, again, this may not be the business for you. So just a few things there, and I'll pass it now to Randy.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. Let me give some kudos to my fellow panel members. One of the things in business I know you have to do is have a good network of friends, mentors, a bunch of smart folks around you just to keep you moving. So Brian, him and I have been friends for quite a long time. He's probably one of the smartest businessmen that I know. He moves very fast. He's definitely a pit bull. He's not a chihuahua. So there's no surprise in seeing how well he has done. And Dr. Marvin Carroll, mentor, advisor, a guy that I go to when I need a little more insight on things. Truly amazing the spirit that he has surrounding him. When you talk to him, you feel like you're in a Baptist church and everybody's listening. So you got to be very careful what you say, because he's going to hold it to you. And then on the other side of the table is General Richardson. For years, I grew up primarily on the tactical side, Army Rangers, Special Operations. I was a communications guy, but conventional Army signal communications, I really was not a part of until the latter part of my career. But General Richardson, I had heard so much about, and in my mind, she's somewhat of a legend in the signal community. And I was fortunate enough to meet her as a friend here on the CDHS board, and we've been friends since then. So, ma'am, thank you for that. So real quick, I'll make it short and sweet. I know you guys probably got a couple of questions. I'll give you a real short history of my background. I am from Los Angeles. I grew up in the South Central LA housing projects. Currently have a 2-year degree in liberal arts, so I've been very blessed. I was never smart enough to design, run RLM Communications, RLM Development Group, and previously RLM Entertainment Company. God really did that, so let me give him the credit, because that's where the credit is due. So I'm really not that smart. And so after coming out of LA, I joined the military in 2000. I retired. Upon retirement, went to work for BAE Systems for about 3.5 years. 90 days in the Maryland area, got promoted to management, moved back here to Fayetteville, Spring Lake. So I ran all their operations on Fort Bragg, had the reserves in Chicago and LA. So very fortunate when I got out. To show you what type of person I am, I retired on a Friday, had a party on a Saturday. On Sunday, I was driving to Maryland. On Monday, I was working for BAE Systems at St. Indigo's. Same thing when I left BAE Systems. I left on a Friday. On Saturday, I went to a furniture auction. On Sunday, I moved into an office. On Monday, I was in business. That's sort of how I like to do things, just to keep it moving. I don't take a lot of breaks, as you can see. So with business, we know it's all about your passion. You know, I talk to a lot of business folks, startups, companies who have business plans, et cetera. And what I find is that part of the passion, or that person's passion, tells me where they are in the game. So the first thing I always ask for is a business plan. I got a couple of folks in here that is with RLM, and they can attest to, you know, Randy Moore would ask you, where's your business plan? All the information is there. You just have to have the intestinal fortitude, the due diligence, the stamina, all those things to get you where you need to get to. I think now people going into business have it a whole lot easier. When I went into business, and I've been in business over 11 years now, a lot of the resources were not readily available, and or you just didn't know about them. So there was a lot of bumps and bruises along the way, but I think there's a tremendous effort out here now to help entrepreneurs, so you have to utilize that. Well, we know nobody's going to give you anything out here. People talk a good game. You know, when I retired, I had friends up at FBI that all the way up to retirement, they, well, Randy, we're going to contact you, this and that. Once I took that uniform off, nothing happened. So if you go into this business and this entrepreneurship thing with that in mind, I think you'll get a lot further. You have to be your biggest cheerleader. You've got to work the hardest. You've got to do the late nights. My wife used to ask me at 3 o'clock, but Randy, you going to bed? And I tell her, no, I'm going to make another pot of coffee. And here we are 11 years later, tremendous amount of blessings through perceived success, and it all pays off in the end. Sometimes you're going to work for people, and then sometimes you're going to decide, I don't want to take any orders from anybody else. So I'll tell you a secret which I wouldn't normally tell people. For the past 6 weeks, I haven't really been to work. So I've been in California, decided my mom, she's 82, a little bit of dementia. I brought her back here about 3 weeks ago, so she lives in my house. So I'm working from my house, and I go into work. I think I've been in the office twice in 6 weeks. So I'm in there yesterday, and I'm talking to the CPAs, and the only reason I was there was I had a teleconference and to wrap up our corporate taxes. And the CPA said, Mr. Moore, I got some good news, and I got some bad news. I said, let's start with the bad news. This go to show you how good God is, and let's take it back all the way to South Central LA, where I grew up in those projects. She said, the bad news is we paid estimated quarterly taxes of $300,000+ in 2014. And I said, wow, what's so bad about that? We're in front of the ball. She said, now we owe another $800,000 on top of the 300 plus. Now soak that in for a second. So 300 plus 800,000, see, God is good. She said the good news is we're gonna write them a check before it's due, and we're gonna keep moving forward. See, it's a good thing. Sometimes the glass is half full and sometimes the glass is half empty. She said, you always never show a lot of reaction when we're talking about money in these CPA meetings and these financial meetings. And what I tell her, it is what it is. What you have to do, if you get out here and you start these businesses, you got to take care of that money. You have to be financially responsible. Sometimes it'll come slow, sometimes it'll come rushing like a stream. And that's what catches a lot of small businesses. They just don't know what to do. I do have friends that make $100 million, $200, $500 million. Some of them do well, but some of them make some critical mistakes along the way. They don't track and account for that money. People start buying houses and cars and doing all these other things. You know, your gut tells you when you're doing the right thing and when you're doing the wrong thing. See, people don't have to be told. This is why when people get in trouble in small business, it's hard for me to feel sorry for people who knowingly make mistakes. And always be mindful of that. So when I talk to small businesses now, you need good accountants that are honest. You need to pay your taxes. You got to get some legal advice. You got to understand HR, regulations, various states. We have folks in 12 different states. And so I have to use outside consultants, people that give me advice, but I have to pay to play. Everything is not going to come free. I know guys like Brian and Dr. Carroll, even General Richardson, will give you as much of our time, as much of our energy as we can. But you got to believe we have other things going on. A lot of what you really need, if you're willing to put in the time, it's already there. You have the libraries, you have the bookstores, you have these seminars, and all these things you can take advantage of, and it's better when you get it on your own. Let's talk about the small business plan real quick. You can go out there, you can pay $12,000 to $15,000 for somebody to build you a small business plan for your company. And a lot of people do that. I always say do it yourself. It's better for you to know your business like the back of your hand than anybody else. And so those shortcuts, I am a type A on steroids. I don't use a lot of excuses for what I do. When I talk to most people and I tell them, if you want something, if you want it bad enough, you'll get it. You don't really need me. You know, it's like losing weight. PT, those of us that have been in the military, we know what it takes. If we want it bad enough, we'll do it. Let's not use excuses for something that we can accomplish. And today is that day. This is that hour. So moving forward, if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to go into business, again, we'll help you as much as we can. But give it all you got first. Thank you.
Hey, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Oh, that was weak. Hubba. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Do we have any veterans in here today from the United States Army or spouses from the Army? Stand up just for just a minute. Or raise your hand if you like. We have, wonderful, thank you very much. How about the United States Navy? Oh, we got two sailors in here, I'm one. All right, thank you. Hubba, the United States Marine Corps. We got any hoorahs in here today? Yes, sir, thank you for your service. And the United States Air Force. Air Force, anybody from Air Force cadets? Anybody, stand up, there you go. Coast Guard, thank you all for your service. I'm Robert Rehder. I work for the Veterans Business Outreach Center. We're an arm of the Office of Veterans and Business Development of the United States Small Business Administration. I'm going to talk to you just for a couple of minutes about entrepreneurship, starting a business and capitalizing a business. I'm a Navy veteran. My dad was a World War II deck officer. He sailed in 3 theaters. My big brother was on the deck in Vietnam as an Army artillery officer. My wife and I have 2 sons, and they're both United States Marines. One's a combat veteran, the other one's just a baby, and Mama loves the ground he walks on. Originally from Wilmington, I enjoyed a career in the international maritime shipping business for many years before joining the School of Business and Economics here at Fayetteville State. Our company had offices in 4 states, and we did business with shipping interests basically all over the world, primarily in the Middle East. Yes, thank Captain Phillips. The VBOC, where I work now, has 15 offices around the country. The North Carolina office is situated right here on our beautiful campus at FSU. What do? We help veterans and spouses and family members start a business. Cybersecurity, yes, we will help you start your business. We will help you capitalize your business. Our mission is to assist veterans and spouses in any entrepreneurial activity. Just one way we do that is our Entrepreneur Boot Camp for disabled veterans, which we've offered annually for the past 4 years here on campus. It's a 1-week immersion class. Come in at 0800 and leave at 1600 every day. And in fact, the 2015 class is graduating just down the hall. This is our last day, and 22 disabled veterans are graduating today. And they will be the next class of veteran entrepreneurs to hit the business world. Based on past metrics, we fully expect that 60% of them will start a successful business within the next 6 months. Well, we've certainly seen technology become increasingly more sophisticated. So the demand for an experienced and qualified workforce to protect our nation's networks and information systems is assuredly high. Opportunities certainly exist and are growing in the federal sector, as I'm sure you've heard this morning. For instance, Commerce, ATF, NSA, SBA, Homeland Security, and a myriad of private firms. Many training opportunities exist to enter those careers. What are some of those? Well, Dr. Charles's program right here at FSU is one. I've mentioned our VBOC program. That's another one. Another example is the Veterans Career Transition Program, operated by the Institute for Veterans and Military Families at Syracuse University. It's delivered at no cost to post 9/11 veterans, their spouses of active duty military, and their spouses. The program offers connections to specific education and training programs such as cybersecurity through business and industry coalitions focused on veteran employment. IT skills and cybersecurity experiences are generally not needed for entry into most of these types of training programs. General computer skills are required, however. Minimum requirements might be use of computer technology, basic familiarity with computer hardware, software operating systems, and specific IT training and IT certifications are optional when you want to go into one of these training programs. But of course, direct experience with computer technology at the system level, computer security experience, and certainly all of those help in training and in future employment opportunities. As far as funding, seed funding for entrepreneurial ventures is available, but always requires a well-written, well-researched business plan for any entrepreneurs that want to start your own business. Viable revenue and profit projections are important. Our office helps with that process. Some of the capital access loan programs we use here are the SBA 7A program, the SBA 504, various microloan programs offered by North Carolina lenders. And there are some other excellent programs available from niche lenders such as the Support Center out of Raleigh and Celtic Bank out of Florida. Want to start your own business in cybersecurity? We will help you, and we will help you become capitalized. Venture capitalists and angel investors are always willing to invest in a promising venture. In closing, interested entrepreneurs could see us or any of our resource partners here in the state or nationally. In the state here, SBTDC, PTAX, NC Military Business Center, NC Vet Biz, Women's Centers, SBA regional offices. You see us for training, for general information, for capital access. All of us here are here to serve you, and we look forward to doing that. If you have an idea about entrepreneurship, starting your own business, capitalizing your own business, come see us. Thank you.
Let's thank all the speakers first. Now let's see what kind of questions. Anybody has questions? Raise hand.
First of all, thank you, panelists, for your comments and for your information. As Mr. Moore just said, my name is Diaz Moore, no relation. But I started my business 7 years this year. And everything that you guys are talking about is so poignant. Just more of a comment to everybody. I don't know everybody's story, but I'll share mine real quickly. I have watched us go from starting off the flood coming in to watching things just crash and burn to having to spend this night, having to rebuild. And it's a painstaking part of actually building a company. Right now, we're in 7 years and we're on a new start. So it's just very tough. It's gut wrenching. So I just want to say on behalf of me and my firm, I just want to say thank you guys for your feedback and insight, because it makes me feel good that the nights that I don't sleep, the hair that I've lost, the gray beard that I've gained, the weight that I've gained, whatever, it's pushing towards the mark. I want to thank you guys.
If you guys don't have questions, I have some questions I can give you. Any question? One of the things which I found out and I learned from the industry is don't shoot when there is no target. And if there is a target, you want to see how hard it is, the one you want. You heard it about doing the intelligence gathering. How do we know, or where do we find out Lockheed Martin has this? The federal government has acquisition forecast. Lockheed Martin has similar. Where do we look for that? There's a small business want to find out there's something Lockheed Martin wants and they can't do it. Where do they find it?
So there are a number of ways to do that. Most large businesses have some sort of a small business office. And you could certainly, that could be a start point. They would then direct you, because they are large businesses and probably have well over 1,000 contracts. They can direct you, if you tell them what you really can do and where you might be of value, okay, then they can direct you maybe to a business area that could utilize you and who you can talk to and that sort of thing. Then there's, I'm trying to think of the name, I've been gone long enough, what's the name of the forecasts that come out? There's a couple of free ones and there's a couple of ones that tell you all of the contracts. Not the Gulf Winds, Federal something. Fed Biz Ops, thank you. But if you go in there and do some studying, you can find out who's got what contracts, with what agencies, and how much they are, and when they are coming due for recompete, those kinds of things. You can, and then take that information, kind of synchronize it and decide, is that where you are, and bring it to the large business or the government agency that you're interested in. I was trying to think of some of the others, but I think starting with utilizing the small business office of either, and most government agencies have their own small business offices as well, and can tell you what's coming up and what's going to be available. And utilizing some of those other tools that are out there like Fed Biz Ops. And there's several others like that.
So if you go on the web, and I go Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Booz Allen, and then I click Google, then I click on small business. Does it take me there, or I should say small business advocacy or small business? What would be the keyword to do?
I was trying to, so let me think, because that's a great question, because to me, Lockheed Martin, getting to that spot, if you go to the Lockheed Martin website, it's not intuitive how you get to the small business area piece. And I might have to think about it for a minute.
I think that really, post-Martin organization, the Homeland, the Lockheed Martin, there is an organization just like cybersecurity as one of the small business. You get in touch with Boeing, get in touch with Lockheed, you get in touch with the small business office. It is an entity within Lockheed Martin, within Boeing, and you would call and there's someone that has the responsibility.
How do you find that when you Google it? I'm a small business.
Yeah, Lockheed.
Those guys are going to tell us.
Okay.
The prime contractors in most circumstances, if you look under small business, they're going to have a vendor registration area where you can actually register your business as a small business. A couple other things, the System for Award Management, SAM. You're going to have NAICS codes. You can have more than one NAICS code. So don't think you can only have one. The other thing is you have to have a D&B number done in Bradstreet. So when you go to register, you're going to have to get a D&B number before you go to register under the System for Award Management. That could go on and on.
No, this is good
I like
stuff.
that one thing here, Steve, he was talking about resources for finding. I would have mentioned locally, we mentioned, it's when we have like every 6 months, and the sales and sales. Right, this recent. So we will be there, but that is one every 6 months, you will know it's coming.
Excuse me.
More questions coming
Well,
up.
I couldn't understand what you said. What was the every 6 months?
It's the MIC event, organized before Bragg, usually held at TCC, what it was this year, because it's gotten large. It was contracting demand. Yes, and it was held on post, but it's gotten to the size now that's being hosted at the university. So,
I'm going to turn that question to these three gentlemen. When you try to find where do they hide their money, same question. What would you look for? Where do you look at? You don't just go to Fed Visa. Go ahead.
Actually, for us, we use Fed Bid office. Probably for about 40 or 50% down the road.
An opportunity. We actually got a very good lesson learned. I walked into a small business officer's office for MTA down in Huntsville. And before I started, the first question he asked me was, you know what my mission statement is? And of course, I had to tell him, I know what IDIQs you have, but I don't know what your mission statement is. He goes, well, how do you he was coaching me on, okay, you got to know who your customer is. Because if you don't know who your customer is, it's great to know what contracting vehicle he's got, but you need to know how to address how your capability can solve his requirement, which supports his mission. So as you write your business plan, I agree with Randy. I think if you're starting out, you'd be foolish to pay someone to write it, because you better understand what you think you want to do. And as you're writing that business plan, you need to look at not just your capability, but your geographical capability. If you don't have the money to pay for the hotel in Washington, D.C. to keep knocking on doors, you might want to start somewhere closer. You might want to start with the small business office for a large prime that's in North Carolina, where you can run to their office, schedule a meeting, or get, do some conferences, and be smart with that money when you're up front. Because when you're first starting, and like Randy said, it doesn't matter when you're just first starting, it's the whole time you're managing it. The money's too precious to throw away. So once you understand what the requirement is, what the mission is, now you can use those tools like FBO to really drill down, Bloomberg, GovWin, several other tools to help you drill in to understand how the contract is structured. But before you jump out there and try to figure out, you can spend a lot of time in that area. Start with the mission, how you think you can support their mission, and then drill down. Because I used to, I got an acronym that I always use when we give a go or no-go. And that's, have we talked to the man? Okay? And when I say have we talked to the man, have we talked to the person that has the money, the authority, and the need? If you hadn't talked to that guy in that organization, you don't really know what the requirement is. And there's a lot of people with requirements with no money. And you can do a lot of briefings that will go nowhere. So it's a very simple acronym when you're doing business. If you need talking to the man at MDA or INSCOM or wherever it is you're going, then you might be going to do briefings and spend a lot of travel money that you don't need to spend.
Got only 3 minutes, let's make it short, can you start with one? Gentlemen, two questions.
Real quick one, I'm Pd.D with Armed Forces Communications Electronics Association, FSU, and talking about accident, and you talked about demand, and I'm not here for business, I'm here for connections. And that's what one thing I'd like to say is one way for the businesses to get, small businesses to get somewhere, come to the FSU conference next month, 21, 22 April at the MC Suite, because I think that's where you can make some connections to get some of that money. So what I asked the panel is what other organizations do you believe that they could get to know and to attend that will help them like FCL?
Air Force, there's something called the Army, Air Force. Each service has a sister organization that provide access to AUSA.
Right, that's the ones like I was saying, AUSA and
Air Force Association, all of them have conferences. Usually I know AFCEA typically has a small business segment, so that small businesses can sit in. And what I find often though is that many small businesses, especially if they've just started and it's a 1 or 2 person company, and they're on site doing work, they don't have the time and don't take the effort maybe in some cases to attend some of those. But you've got to get out there and get yourself branded, get known, build your network, so that and those are actually good venues to do that.
Yeah. And FCO does the Cyber Center, one at Fort Gordon in the fall and October, which is focused on and led by the Cyber Center of Excellence at Fort Gordon.
I would also say there's a lot of associations that deal with this industry. There's North Carolina Military Business Center, North Carolina Military Business Association. But don't forget, there's also, if you think a little bit, because this is a cyber thing, you also want to look at maybe your local chamber and what other businesses are around that you can team with or work with. And then in North Carolina, we have a group called the North Carolina Technology Association out of Raleigh. And they're very plugged in. They go to Washington, D.C. once a year. They go take the technology concerns of North Carolina to the Hill. And they actually, if you go with them for that 36-hour trip, you get to sit there with the director of the FCC. You get to sit there with several of the key guys that are making policy that affect communications, IEEE, and some of those pieces. So look at the organizations that would support your niche. Because there are some organizations that are not labeled as defense that are really key to success in an IT and intel and a cyber focus.
Well, I'm very sorry. Time's up. They told me that you can go and get your box lunch and come back in. Thank you very much again. Thanks to all.